Welcome to the IERLab Podcast Season 4. I'm your host, Walter Lee, and today we dive into the rise of kidfluencers, specifically in India. Now, does it differ from your country? Behind their charming videos and brand collaborations, is there a world shaped by parental control, commercialization, and the pressures of online visibility? Well, we'll explore how these young influences both reflect and reinforce dominant culture values through language, religion, and family portrayals. But as their fame grows, so do the risks, as we've seen with many other influences, from exploitation and cyberbullying to the urgent need for better child protection policies, which I, as a father, am very, very interested in. And to speak on this topic today, we have Devina Sarwatay, the Presidential Fellow, Department of Media, Culture and Creative Industries at the School of Communication and Creativity, City of St. George's, University of London. Welcome, Devina.
Hi, thanks so much for having me, Walter. I really look forward to chatting with you today about this exciting new article in our special issue of Social Media and Society Journal that Professor Crystal Abedin kindly curated and edited with the support of a team at the IER Lab.
Excellent, excellent. We're very happy to have you on the show today. I'm extremely interested in seeing as well that I've been able to talk to people from all different nationalities as backgrounds, or at least where they've grown up, or maybe where they are at the moment. And India hasn't been a place I've touched upon yet, so I'm very interested
Mm.
in seeing what India has to offer. So we'll get straight into it with my
Mhm.
first question, which is, how do it's quite interesting. It's an interesting word, kidfluencers,
Mhm.
contribute to India's influencer marketing industry in both the economical and the cultural sense?
Absolutely happy to answer this. The contribution is quite significant. Economically, kidfluencers, which is like you've put together kids and influencers, so kidfluencers in like common lay terms. They're part of a booming influencer marketing industry in India. And this industry, by some estimates, is projected to reach Indian national rupees 3,375 crores by 2026, which is a good chunk of, I think, a few 100 million USDs. I'm not
Wow.
very good at the conversion, not an economics person, but it's a massive industry and it's only growing. And these children, often with hundreds of thousands to millions of followers, engage in what your usual influencers will engage in as well: brand collaborations, advertising. They even launch their own product lines. Some of them have their own online shops where they sell curated fashion looks or toys. They often also sort of blur boundaries and get featured in television shows, films, so they're everywhere. Culturally speaking, they're shaping dynamic digital norms and aesthetics. Their content, whether it's lip syncing to trending songs, or showcasing family life, or participating in religious customs, they all reflect and reinforce dominant cultural narratives. That's the crux of my piece. They're not just passive participants, they're active agents in the commodification of childhood and the digital representation of Indian identity for everyone to engage with, whether it's audiences and users within the country in India or globally.
That's quite interesting. And just a quick question. When you say kidfluencers, is there a certain age where it begins and a certain age where the line is cut off?
Right. So in my work, I'm looking at young people within the ages of 10 to 18, but
Hmm.
we're seeing more and more younger kidfluencers. And I think we should go to Professor Crystal Abedin's book here, which is coming out soon. Crystal makes a very good point as to who are influencers, who are child influencers, who are kidfluencers, and that sort of categorization and taxonomy, if you will, is quite helpful in unpacking this term. And I think I should leave it to the experts to do that. I'm hoping you'll have Crystal on soon as well.
We will indeed, actually. She is
Mm-hmm.
going to be on. We just had her, and she's going to be on towards the end of season 4 as well. And just
Brilliant.
another quick question as well.
Mhm.
Mainly in India, what is the main platform that Indians use? Is it Instagram, YouTube, or do they have their own, let's say, national social media?
Mm-mm. So it's really interesting because I'm going to give a little bit of a media history lesson here,
Hmm.
if that's okay.
That's fine with me. I'm really happy to listen.
So we see really interesting trends around social media platforms in India, wherein, of course, Facebook was massively popular at one point in time. When I was doing my PhD and starting my field work, and I went into classrooms and I said, "Do you guys know about social media?" And then I mentioned Instagram and Snapchat, and everyone was happy. And then I said Facebook, and all of my school children were like, "Facebook, Facebook, you're older than you look." So, so people have gotten quite active across platforms, whether it's Instagram or YouTube or TikTok. And that's where the media history lesson comes. So we were quite early in banning a lot of social media platforms
Ah.
in India, quite like what we're seeing now in the US and Australia, even.
Hmm.
So TikTok got banned for national security reasons in 2020. And that's when we sort of branched out in India. So a lot of middle class, upper middle class people, they went to Instagram, and it was quite curious to note that Reels was launched at roughly the same time that TikTok was banned in India.
Hmm.
And a lot of my young people who I was working with at the time when TikTok got banned, they told me that TikTok was quite cringy.
Hmm.
So they are happy with the Instagram and the YouTube format of reels and shorts.
Ah.
But then this was primarily with my middle class, upper middle class young people,
Hmm.
and high income family young people. With my lower middle class and low income family young people. For them, they felt Instagram was too high class
Hmm.
and too inaccessible.
Hmm.
And that's why they branched out to more local India-based platforms.
Hmm.
So we still have a lot of them which are quite popular. So we've got Moj, we've got ShareChat. A few of them thrived, a few of them not so much. So there was an Indian version of Twitter called Koo, which didn't unfortunately last and it's defunct now. But yeah, that's your media history lesson, Walter. I hope you learned something.
No, I definitely learned a lot. I find it quite interesting that they also are classed within like lower, income
Mm-hmm.
families versus middle income families and how they perceive social media in general. Because I never thought about that, and that's something that doesn't exist where I'm living at the moment. So that's
Mm.
very interesting indeed. And what aspects of dominant, let's say, Hindu culture are commonly represented in Indian kidfluencer content?
Thanks. That's a really important question. So, in my piece, in the analysis that I've done, I found that many kidfluencers portray dominant Hindu cultural symbols and practices. So, for example, they appear in reels wearing traditional attire. They have tilaks, which are these red vermilion marks that you put on your foreheads. They're often lip syncing to devotional songs or participating in religious festivals. Not to say that this is
Mm,
what they do all the time, but India has a lot of festivals. So
mm,
every time there's a festival or there's a religious, thing happening, these reels kind of come back and those lip syncing, trending songs sort of come back, devotional songs,
mm,
etc. So these representations It's curious to see that they are often curated by their parents, and
Mm,
it's the parents that are also managing their accounts and guiding their content.
mm,
So it's interesting how, to some extent, how these portrayals can be concerning because they align or they can align with broader political narratives that we are seeing in the country right now.
mm,
And what we're seeing in the country right now is the context where Hindutva ideologies are gaining traction. And to just explain a little bit for our global audiences,
mm,
Hindutva ideologies are linked with right-wing extremism in India,
mm,
and many scholars describe this movement as a form of exclusionary nationalism. It includes the marginalization of regional minorities, uses conspiracy theories, hate speech, etc. So while these posts may seem innocent or celebratory, they also often contribute to normalization of singular religious identity. And it's quite ironic because as a country, constitutionally, we are secular and physically, we're incredibly diverse.
Just a quick question. India, is it the country with the second largest population in the world?
Exactly.
And does it differ from, let's say, the capital city outwards, or is it very much the same trend that you're seeing across the country itself?
So most of these influencers, or kidfluencers in my case, who've become quite popular, they're quite based in major metropolitan cities,
Mm,
which is why it's easier for them to get that traction.
hmm
And a lot of these, they come from Hindi speaking backgrounds. So there are others who come from different contexts within, say, for example, the south of the country,
hmm
where Hindi isn't necessarily the language or lingua franca,
hmm
as we call it. So they use a lot of different languages like English to reach broader audiences. Some of them also speak regional languages like
hmm
Tamil or Marathi or Telugu. So, but predominantly, I see just based on the number of followers that some of these kidfluencers have, they come largely from north and central parts of the country where Hindi is quite popular.
Ah, I see, I see. And
Mm,
the next question is sort of important to me personally as a father, and I guess
mm,
and anyone who really has the access to kidfluencers, not just in India, but all over the world. What kinds of online abuse, bullying, or trolling let's talk about Indian kidfluencers reportedly
mm,
faced?
mm. Of course, unfortunately, the risks are very, very real, and kidfluencers everywhere, including in India, are not free from the risks. Um, Especially as they scale their presence, they become more vulnerable to online abuse. So I call this phenomenon platform scaling. That is having multiple accounts on the same platform, or and in some cases having multiple accounts across multiple platforms. So the same kidfluencer will have accounts on Instagram as well as on YouTube as well as on smaller other Indian apps. The goal is to build a robust platform presence to handle growth and increasing demand, both technically and strategically, and to keep adding follower counts and deepen monetization across platforms. So you're
Hmm.
earning money from your Instagram account as you monetize it, also from your YouTube account as you monetize it, and so on and so forth. Now, when Kidfluencers add this sort of massive growth to their follower counts, and across platforms. This means that there's more opportunities for online abuse.
Hmm.
And this abuse includes trolling, stalking, even pedophilic attention. And all of this has been reported significantly in Indian media. And plus, there's the mental load of being constantly online, of having to perform, deliver content, maintain visibility. All of this can be quite overwhelming for children. There's also the psychological toll. Some children experience stress, anxiety. There's a blurring of boundaries between their real lives and their online personas, especially because some of these kidfluencers constantly post about family values and family
Mm,
lives and, those kind of things.
mm,
And also because regulation in India is still catching up. There's very little protection in place for these young creators. And here I'm only talking about protection at the institutional level. At the
mm.
personal front, given that most kidfluencers have parents as their managers, the protection is in the hand of their adults, right? Their parents.
Hmm.
So the question is more for the parents. What trade-off do they choose as the parents of these young creators and kidfluencers? Do they choose growth? Do they choose protection? As managers of their kidfluencers or as parents of their children? What role are they playing?
That's a very, very good point. And that sort of brings me on to my last question today, which
Hmm.
is how can researchers such as yourself or educators such as yourself, as well as policymakers, balance creativity, which is very important in this world and especially these days with social media, but also protect child protection in the influencer economy? And let's take
Hmm.
your approach from it.
Oh, definitely. So, so important. We need a multi-pronged approach. So, first of all, there's an urgent need for national policy frameworks that address social media use among children and adolescents. We do not have a robust policy that foregrounds young people's voices and experiences at the national level or even at the regional level. And this includes data protection, this includes labor rights, includes mental health safeguards. Secondly, we need parental advisories and critical digital literacy programs that help families navigate this space responsibly. As researchers, I believe we can contribute to both of these by documenting practices and amplifying children's voices and advocating for ethical standards, thereby feeding into policy at the institutional national level, and also feeding back into advisories and literacy programs for young people and parents and educators. And for us educators, are concerned, whether they're in the higher education space like me, or whether at the school level, they can integrate media literacy into curricula. Finally, I feel that policymakers must absolutely engage with the realities of platformized connected childhoods. I think we need a little bit more work here. Not enough work is being done, not enough awareness is being created. And I believe creativity should be nurtured. Like, what are young people's experiences without creativity, without, exploring, but
Hmm.
not at the cost of exploitation.
Hmm.
It's a fine balancing act. There are aspirations and there are anxieties. How do you navigate this complicated space?
Yes, yes. That seems to be the problem, not just in India, but in all over the world. And
Mm,
it is
mm,
sort of quite interesting that it's still taking this long to find, obviously, a right balance and also the right way to
mm,
handle these sort of situations. Where I'm stationed at the moment in Korea, there's a lot of
mm,
things that need to be changed, especially with
mm,
younger students,
mm,
starting social media early. I know people who are,
mm,
younger than 10 who already have Instagrams, and it's uh,
mm,
it's something that as a parent is quite worrying. But before we wrap up
mm.
today, Davina, is there
Yeah,
anything you would like to
yeah,
promote? Example, your future studies, current work, etc. Like, there's always, the potential of you having you back on. I know I've got a few guests coming
yeah.
back onto the show. So could you talk about maybe
Mm,
a topic
mm.
you're passionate about?
Yeah, yeah, thanks. No, just to the earlier point that we were making about Korea, I feel like there are a few things we could learn from Korea, in fact. There was a push in Korea about AI in education, and I
Hmm.
think there was a lot of advocacy at the grassroots level from parents and educators, and the pushback was such that Korea had to, the education ministry had to say, okay, well, we hear you, and we won't push for AI in education so much. And also, there's a brilliant media literacy program that Korea has ingrained within the school curriculum. So,
Mm.
but I do believe that Korea is also quite an interesting case study where there's a lot of consumerism and there's a lot of
Mm.
hype around social media. So it's interesting to see, I feel like I want to be the interviewer now and ask you about your question. Well, that's the researcher in me, I suppose. But yeah, thank you for asking about what I'm passionate on about and what I'm working on. I'm currently working on several exciting projects. My recent research on young people and digital cultures has been published in journals like Information, Communication and Society. This one's about young people's negotiation on their social media lives. Media International Australia. This has my work on TikTok cultures of young people in India before sadly TikTok got banned. I'm also co-editing a handbook on media and marginalized communities. And all of this is either happened in the recent past or happening now. But looking ahead, I'm developing projects on digital empathy and citizenship. That's one project. Another project that I'm involved in is time experience and digital well-being. And the third project that I'm involved in is AI in education. So I'm basically passionate about bridging academic research with public engagement. So you see a lot of those themes being reflected in my work and in my projects. And yes, I'd love to return to talk more about these themes. Thank you.
Yes, and we would love to have you back. It sounds like you are very busy at the moment, especially with having three projects on the go and also just finishing up a few others. But I would like
Mm.
to thank our listeners today for listening to the IER Lab podcast. Once again, thank you to today's guest, Devina Sarwatay.
Mhm. Thank
And
you so much
until
for
next
having me.
time, this has been Walter Lee, and you may click on your next adventure now.